Hey everyone, I'm Tassinix, and welcome to Plotting and Scheming, covering Season 64, 3 versus 3 Grand Arena Championship, Week 3. I am joined by most of the regular ensemble today. It is Dagger, TJ, and Sasha Aisha. Fatal couldn't be with us today. But gentlemen, it was a great week. Great in the sense that I won more than I lost. I had one match versus Zid and lost handily. And then I had two Erodiums. So let that be a lesson to you all about how to achieve superiority on a weekly basis. And yeah, that wraps it up for me, I'd say. How about you, Dagger? How'd the week go?
I went 2-1. Got hoed out by Fleet in round 3. Yay. But yeah, I was able to collect my bad batch of rewards, if you will.
Ha! Oh, dreadful, terrible, hate it. Yeah, the make good, right? That's what
Yeah,
you're referring to.
yeah. And people can't claim it because of the data crown thing.
Which is good.
I'm just gonna in the intro just have a bad dad joke here. I mean, I earned it.
All right. Well, TJ, how about you? How did the week go for you?
Rabble, rabble, rabble. Fuck you, blah, 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 rabble, rabble. 1-2.
Damn.
I like that.
Rough.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, we had a vent session pre-show, so we all got some of our anger and frustration.
Yeah, rabble, rabble, rabble. Just feels better that way.
Yeah.
All right. And Sasha, how about you? How'd the week wrap up? How'd the season end?
Went pretty well. I had multiple real matches. I went 2-1. I did have an Erodium, so it was one good win, one tough loss, but it was it was fun. It was fun. At this point, I'm facing the same folks again and again and again, so there's a ton of familiarity. The nice part is it's like you're playing friends at this point. So it was kind of fun just chatting about it even between rounds and stuff. So it was a good time.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, time to dig into the meta-analysis. So, yeah, week 1 was pretty challenging with, so much being new. Week 2, a lot of folks had data, had the opportunity to try a lot of counters and see what they liked. Week 3, most folks were a well-oiled machine. I only had the one match to go off of, and really anything can happen when I fight Zid, so, it's tough to say. But for me, like any new lessons from the last week, well, I'll say this. I had to make a choice about fighting a Saw Luthen, and I didn't want to do Reva. Actually, I couldn't do Reva because I set her on defense. So I did BKM Paz Grogu, saw somebody, a handful of people pulled out the 54, and I was going to be willing to live with that loss. When I tell you that I finished that fight with like 20 seconds on the clock, and most of it was me cursing on stream because at least half the fight I am sitting there locked down, stunned, ability blocked or something, shocked, blah, 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 so on. Feared, all of it, just a huge mess. Hated it. Hated the experience. I'm thinking that if I wanted to make that more reliable, I should have my BKM in particular much faster, like speed set faster. I've been having her in fast offense since the beginning, and have largely enjoyed that. But if I wanted to make that specific matchup feel better, I feel like I need her to take turns a little bit more often to drop that lockdown when I don't have either of the sides free to help stabilize her. I just need that turn to pass. What about you guys? What do you got to say?
I mean, on that specifically, I don't think a speed set moves the needle, but I do understand like your frustration with the fight. I just, as somebody who has a speed set BKM, I can tell you it's not better.
I mean, that is somewhat comforting.
I can tell you and I know we talked about it because Dagger pulled it in, but this goes to a perfect reflection. In almost all instances right now, with the Bamcron, your BKM team is just that much stronger with what it applies and 25% turn meter to start at level 3. You don't need the other things because BKM is such a monster that Dagger, I think, called it really well. BKM was one of the best teams all around this season.
I refuse to admit that publicly.
I don't care. You called it out, and we're voicing it in that second. Shut up. This is a feature. This is what we're calling it. But to support it, every time I use BKM, I put BAM there with the BAMcron. Man, that was just so good, and it upped my game. And then also, and it didn't even have the 25% turn meter. It didn't even have the right level 3. Everything else was correct. Felt so good. So it's like when you tell me I need to put it in a speed set, it's like, no, you don't. You just use the BAMcron, and it solves your problem.
Well, so let me ask you something. So you're talking about specifically this Saw matchup, and it would be BKM, BAM,
Mhm.
and Paz?
No, ID12 stays the same
Oh,
way.
with Grogu, okay. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's going to be turn meter level 3, smuggler, long text, no,
Nope,
mercenary. It's
Merc.
mercenary,
It's
right?
Merc. So it's attack out of turns. And we talked about it. Spoiler on what we talked about and what I'll go for the next one. But you put it together, it amps up your BKM team because think about the times where if your BKM isn't called, who else is there? Bam. So Bam will go again. It works great. I almost exclusively was pushing with this setup instead of or Paz or whatever you want to say. It felt phenomenal because at each point I was getting there quicker to what I needed to get to, holding it down, and then I'd have birds to offset. It was great.
Paz does feel a lot weaker in 3v3 than he does in 5v5. I'm not saying that there's a better third, and I'm not saying that like I'm not trying to say anything about the team outside of using BKM this season. I used Paz almost exclusively, but I will say that every time I went in, there was a mental checklist of would somebody be better than Paz because he specifically continues to underperform in 3v3 for me. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he's like the worst member on the team. Not that there's anything wrong. Somebody has to be the worst, right? But yeah, there was always that mental thing. And if Bam is better, especially with the Bamcron, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just for me using BKM, IG, and Grogu and Paz feeling relatively lackluster in all matchups.
I'll give you a perfect example of where this looks and it's contrasting data. People were doing the bash JML, and I'm taking it as a sidebar to what you were asking, and it feels like the data would say when you did BKM with Paz on whatever it was done on the previous data for bash JML and Watt, the wins were I think 60% or something. It was really low, and every time I faced it, and these were good setups, these were good relics, and everything else against proper setup teams. You take Bam on this setup, and I destroyed. Like, I couldn't understand how there was a fail point, and anybody would take Paz when it was just so good with Bam. And so it's just things like that where it's like the data doesn't translate. And I think Dagger's like, I think Fatal may counter, but I know Fatal has a really good Paz. But right now with this Datacron, it amps the team for me, and which is why I bring up the point, and probably what we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Paz is actively like bad or that he shouldn't be on the team. I'm just saying that every fight I did versus Ahsoka, every fight I did I did a fight versus Gungans. I did a fight. I'd have to go back and look, but I think I did a fight versus Saw. Like every fight I did, he just felt like the weakest person on the team. And that again, it's the same I feel with like Balin, where Balin frequently feels like he just is a kit that exists so that Merrick and Shin can do all of the lifting. I'm not saying Balin's bad. I'm just saying like it's the same way that team feels like Balin isn't.
No, I think it's fair. I think it's fair for your lineup does feel accurate because if you can't get past the stump, right? Let me call him the tree. He stands in your way, so he's the wall. If you can't bypass the wall, my team is going around and beating the hell out of you. So I see what you're doing for the comparison of it.
Yeah, because with Balin specifically, I don't know if this is your guys' experience as well, but Balin does his third, and then everyone dies. And I'm like, well, I'm really glad you were on the team, Balin, and that you pre-taunted.
Yes. Yes, that's what I mean, right? Like, you would do a Han because, like, oh, I don't want that person to go because he may kill my Merrick or my Shin, and Balin's not going to do shit for me. But if he stuns you, you're screwed because my Merrick and my Shin are going to do the rest of the work. So
Because I remember talking with Tass about me. I actually really love Crew Han Chewy. Not that I used Han Chewy much this season, but when I do use Han Chewy, and like against these smuggler crons, I know I mentioned it on Tass's stream when he had a guest, where Crew has an unresistible stun. So like just the utility of just being a pre-taunt, having an unresistible stun, Han's basic not being evaded, just made a really good recipe for beating smugglers. Again, not that I used it a ton because I just had enough reserved for offense. But it's the same kind of concept as that, the Balin team. I mean, obviously it's a better version of the team, but yeah.
Sure,
and Balin also
So-
was really good this season. Sorry, Sasha.
No, I was gonna jump in on that just from a meta perspective, like going back to Tass's original sort of the defense he was talking about with Saw. I definitely felt like through this season that Saw Luthen, and particularly Saw Luthen with Krex as a third, was scary. Like, I mean, again, it was rough. I didn't feel confident, particularly against my opponents where I had BKM failures before. So what I ended up doing, and I this was really ended up being something that I saw through the data, that Seer, Malicos, and Cal was very safe. So that ended up really shaping what I
Nice.
was doing. It meant that I didn't have ATF with Seer Malicos. I didn't set Malicos on D, but that was like for me a comfortable 57 offensive option, knowing I was going to see Saw.
Let me have you hold my beer, Sasha. This is why it goes into the next setup. I said the same thing. I have the Calcron with the bulk and all of the setups that make it nice with the level 9. When I tell you, and again, I'm going to go to the Datacron piece, me having to fight Saw, no Krex, Luthen, and Kyle with that Kyle Cron and that Merc added thing, I damn near walked away. One, I lost somebody in one of my fights. This is Seer Cal Malicos. This is exactly what you're talking about. I literally lost somebody in one of my fights, and in the other one, I damn near lost. They Kyle damn near one shot, not Cal, not Seer. Damn near one shot my Malicos. He pushed me to the point of actually having my Cal, again, Cal level 9. It's a Relic 7, but it's still bulky and etc. On a light side bulk, he made me hit the revive portion of the mechanic. That's how strong this Kyle Cron with that additional attack is. Every time he would go, and he kept going so many times, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I had Kyle proc the Savior on Seer.
That's what I mean, right? It's crazy how strong this Cron is and why it's like I lead into the BAM only to go to the Kyle because it's like I already know what I'm doing next season, depending on what we have shape up, obviously, right?
Yeah, I need to go back to the prot built Seer because I was on health because of the TW this week. This season. Need to go back to the prot built Seer.
And that's where I'm like, we don't have bulk coming next time to save your Seer and your Cal. So I have big fears of what is it, Dagger?
Yeah, zero fear on Cal dying, by the way. Cal has that level 9. Now, he ain't going nowhere.
No, he got revived.
Well, yeah, but remember, when next we return to 3 versus 3, you don't have that. So
I'm saying, even with the 9, though, he procced. So that Kyle procced Cal's revive.
Like R5 Cal.
No, I have R7 Cal. I don't have an R5.
You disgust me.
No, that you call it whatever you want. But
TJ's like it's R7. I'm like, okay, good. So it's still like R5. Got it.
This fucking guy. You didn't earn your R9. Shut up.
I R9. I have R9. I have manually clicked the button to R9 a Cal Kestis in my life. You can eat shit. I have manually clicked the button. I have to phrase it that way, and y'all know.
I know you do.
I have manually clicked that button. Do not.
To me, having a bulk setup on an R7 with a relic, with a level 9 Datacron, which is helping you to intensify the defense, and watching your Cal literally get procced for the revive was shocking to me.
You should probably just not have an R5 Cal.
Right. And you keep saying the words because you can't count. And it's okay. I understand that for 5 equals 7D. That's fine. But I'm just calling out. I'm just
You're
calling
fighting
out that
against R8 and R9 teams. R7 is basically R5.
I was in the same
relish
impression of
on your
what
shit,
Sasha. What I'm saying is what
relish
Sasha was
on
saying.
your
Fight
shit.
nice.
Shut up.
Sorry.
What Sasha is saying is true. I walked in with the same notion and then got my mind immediately changed watching my team get decimated by one character because one, turn meter setup, so they're already in front to the loop.
Yep.
And then they're off to the. You can't stop the stuff with the seer, right? And you're like, well, it's fine. The turn meter gain is like, oh no, my team looks hurt. Oh shit, Cal just got the revive setup. Oh no, seer's gone. What's happening? And it intensifies that quick. And then if he gets that third proc, dude, the holy shit factor kicks in because there's also Dagger put it very eloquently, explode. And that's I watched my team and my face drop is like my team's fading away. Don't leave me. But that was good.
Yeah,
I just wanted to comment on it.
I've been straight to your point though, TJ. Like I consistently faced Kretz as a third rather than Kyle.
Agreed.
And there's less early DPS pressure with that, right?
Mhm.
So like I had not had an issue. I mean, yeah, some damage was done to my squad, but there was never a moment where I thought I was going to lose the battle, but I was not facing that Kyle. The other aspect on just sort of the broader meta aspect of like BKM and her role, and really for me when I was setting my defense, I felt like BKM was one of the most problematic predators out there. That I actually reached a point where I deliberately set LV lead with Maul and Thrawn. So I didn't want a cheap bounty. I actually and I put a dark side turn meter on it so that they couldn't just. If I didn't have that, I knew they could potentially use Bosk under Fennec and get a taunt up. I did that deliberately, saying, "Hey, here's free BKM food on bottom front," because I wanted to set in the back an Ahsoka that didn't have Ezra, and I set my JMK this week, and they're both so darn good, but vulnerable to BKM. So it's like I want to do anything I could to get BKM off the board. So yeah,
I think that's a really important consideration for this week. I was sweating about BKM as well.
Dude,
she really did shine this season. She had a lot of application, and that's with everybody keeping Gungans for offense. So strong agree.
That's right. And Taff, you talk often about, and I'm a huge subscriber to this philosophy that you play the opponent, more than you play sort of like your own particular strategy. And I was deliberately looking. Do any of my opponents have BKM tendencies I can exploit? Like if they use BKM against Sawluth and Krex, I didn't have a Kyle one to use, but if it was Sawluth and Krex, can I draw BKM using that? And none of them were consistent. Neither of them were consistent on that. Or was there something else they do for BKM? Because it was that top of mind for me.
I think here's what's relevant. I don't think it stops. So where I think this is relevant for the discussion is I expect her to stay this player next season because there's a cron that relates to her. And what we can do and what you get to keep solace in, Tass, is you can bulk out your BKM and keep her how you want. Keep her nice and happy because you've got 25% to work on it. And with the BAM, I still feel like it's going to take out most anything that you see. It's just she's that utility knife. She's not
I
going
meant
to do
to
good on
ask
defense.
this a few minutes ago to you, and I know we kind of wandered around on a couple things talking about this point. But the level 9 for BAM isn't actually pivotal, right? It's just the 3/6 that's making the difference.
I love the 9 because personal experience of using it. I've watched the damage that's being done to him be returned on him. I'm watching their health bar just decrease. Do I call it a requirement? No, but is it a nice to have? Yes, because I actually saw where I got hit and damaged from my BAM, and I watched their bar go down. So it speeds up the fight and what's being done to him. So what I called a requirement, I would call it a very nice to have. And the combination of the Merc return fire on top of, or like the out of turn additional attacks with him when IG-12 calls him, and that 9, to me, makes your fight 15% easier than it was previously because of that.
Okay.
So I haven't used it, as I mentioned, but I'll tell you, Tess, the one sort of concept on it that appealed to me was Bam occasionally has an issue that a lot of men, particularly early in life, can realize, where he gets a little excited a little too fast.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, dude, just wait for 20, but he can't because they
Right.
target him down. So this thing, if they target him to prematurely get Bam to go off, he's doing damage. So every time that they are hitting him, he's ramping his birds. So like the premature Bam becomes less of a problem.
Yeah,
right?
Because yes, it's about birds are stacked whenever.
Yeah.
What is the effect? Damage is done to the enemy while he's in the squat. So
Sorry, I can't relate.
What is it?
He can't relate. Dagger doesn't have this problem. Yeah. He's the only one.
I know I don't have BAM level 9. I mentioned that in the.
I am farming
It also works both ways.
One question for you guys.
The point of the comment was that it works both ways, but I also don't have the BAM level 9.
Yeah,
that's fair.
One on BKM, and not on prematurity, but on BKM. I'm considering it for my next R9. Do you guys think that I'm guessing from what you're saying, you think BKM is like a no-brainer R9 or no?
I don't think
not
it
BAM, but
needs.
BKM.
Well,
I don't think it needs.
I will say this. I think every character where the majority of their kit revolves around their stats should be a priority to R9. Bo is a character that cares about her health and her offense.
If you are looking at a nice to have, sure, I can understand the nice to have aspect, but I think her kit is so well done for who she is because she can stand the test of time. Even at an R8, R7, I would definitely want R8, nothing less. She still stands there.
The point I was trying to land was basically, if you want to ever change her out of offense modding, I feel like R9 is a no-brainer.
I would 100% agree that if you're trying to do anything outside of the standard big boom stick.
I was thinking that like I specifically took her to R9 just to get that extra offensive throughput to push through my 3 offense primaries, right? That's what I used to have. So I think I put her in a speed arrow with a really strong offense secondary since. But I did it for gaining that bit of offense. Because like 300 offense becomes about 500-ish offense, something like that, pushing up on 6.
Worth mentioning, like, I would not take this team against this team in Conquest. It seems unreliable. Outside of that, I think just... Again, there's so many health and offense multipliers on that team in general, where I think that it's just kind of a no-brainer to R9 her at a certain point. Now, to TJ's point, I don't know when you do that, in the sense of, like, in order of what number R9 should it be, whether it's, R9 number 18 or R9 number 34. You know what I mean?
No, that's a fair
I
call.
don't know where it falls in that, but to answer Sasha's question as well as I can, I do believe that she has consistently performed to a point where an R9 would be worth it just to secure some of the fights where it gets chintzy.
I'll tell you.
And also remember, I mean, with her with ancestral resolve, ramping health and defense on her, giving her that leg up off the rip definitely helps.
I'll put it.
Go ahead.
You could put it like this to make it even easier. And each meta we've gone to, regardless of the cron set, how well has Bo done for you, Sasha? Will be your answer to should I do it? And to me, you couldn't go wrong with the answer because in each situation that's come up, as long as there is a light side cron, you can go use your BKM. Now, whatever the team around her supporting is going to do it, it'll make it eventful. But she, as a team, while not probably going to be on defense, has been an amazing asset in almost every season that's come up.
Yeah, I in 3s, I totally agree. In 5s, often. There was one lapse, and it was recent, may have been the last 5 season or the season before that, where I started to see myself not using BKM 100% of the time. And now, like I reconverted to it, but I think it's worth it. And this 3 season, it seems super compelling. And to TJ's point, like we're always going to have, not always, but most of the time, we're going to have some light side Datacron set that will help juice it up. So helpful, you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So good discussion around my question. How about you guys in this last week? Any meta matchups that you found? I hadn't encountered that. Oh, that was novel. Anything jump out at you?
Saw Kyle.
Yeah, well, we already covered that fairly exhaustively, I think.
That's what it felt really used. Everything you were doing, like anything that people were doing.
Mhm.
I know the Omega, whatever you want to call it, for that team was out, but I felt like that was pretty solved. But it felt like Merc had a bigger play, at least for me, where I was at with what people were doing, where it adjusted my fight a little bit. I had to take a look. That's why I said the Saw Kyle felt like the biggest one, where I was like, that is standoutish. And man, I'm glad people didn't realize this is what it was going to do by the end, because I think I could have, with who I faced and some of the better moddings or something like that, it could have been a real problem for what I would have ran into, where it's like, Sasha's like, I just used Seer. It's like, don't do that. Did you face this? And it's like, oh, it was the Merc setup with the Kyle, and that's what caused the variation.
I appreciate that. How about the rest of you? Anything stick out to you for this week?
One thing I'll call out that was like, it's not unheard of at all, but it's just maybe slightly less common application of Ezra Exile, who, as we've talked about for the last several shows, is like elevated to like almost a figurative GL. But that Hera, like General Syndulla, Padawan Sabine, Ezra squad is just not to be taken lightly. I said it, I faced it. I talked to some other people who had a GAC basically torn up by it. Just a reminder, and that's one of the reasons, like I was saying, I wanted to try and draw BKM out because my GL Ahsoka was being set without Ezra to protect her, because I liked that General Syndulla squad. So like I that's one that is, I think, going to have legs for quite a while. It's particularly nice with light side bulk.
So when you're setting that General Syndulla team, Exile Ezra, Padawan Sabine, Padawan Sabine Kron, I mean, we won't have that next time, but is that what you were doing?
It is what I was doing. I think that's helpful. I don't know that is like determinative, and it was like it was with the crit avoidance, 100% crit avoidance and crit chance level 6 for Ufu, only applicable to her in the squad. I think that's good. I think it's helpful. You do want Sabine as probably your primary damage dealer in that crew, but I think it's a tough squad even without it. You have Fracture there. You have the challenge of Ezra, like essentially being like a top tier level tank who you can't assist against. That I think it's a good squad that I don't know if it'll survive the absence of light side bulk level 3, but that'll come back at some point soon. I don't think it was dependent on the Padawan Sabine level 9 at all.
It's not. It's Ezra.
Nice.
It's literally the Ezra.
Yeah.
I've say they've put so many variations. People are putting that on me all week.
Well,
and
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just saying that Ezra is what does the fight. You have to. It's what we talked about, and you'll see. But it's like, if they tried ATF with the Padawan Sabine on the team. They're doing something like that. Well, that's cool because the ATF is there. Oh no. And it's like, I'm not taking the Balin or anything else like that. I'm just anticipating actually I wrote it down. Without the Ezra, which we all know is going to be the monster on the team, I was able to take what was it? Sorry. The back. I just did Gungans. And I just 57 and it moved on. I don't see how you're not doing that to Ezra. Ezra keeps the respect. It's, as we call it, a GL. So it's like, I looked at there. I was like, how am I going to split my stuff up? So I didn't even have to use my Balin there.
So maybe there'll be differing opinions on this. I like the idea of that split, but I felt that I'd be setting up more vulnerable versions of both Ahsoka and Rey. So, I mean, I guess starting with you, Sasha, what was your kind of Rey and Ahsoka comp that went alongside
Rey,
that? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think the best option for Rey in the meta we're just leaving would have been like Ben and Ufukal with like a well-developed Ufukal Datacron, because that squad can be pretty darn formidable. It's a decent alternative to having Ezra there. It's not at the same level because Ezra is that much of a game changer. But then, since Cal and Ezra, I would say it's throwing Nest out there, and Nest was like the variable I considered for. In fact, I think one round, um, I think I set Ahsoka, Watt, and Nest as one squad. So that
Wow, that is
ensures
crazy.
that. Yeah, so I it got Ahsoka. She gets tank tech as the first move. As a Watts bonus turn, which means she's got a high degree of regeneration. You can't cheese that down as easily. And then it means the health tech is going to be going to your Ahsoka. So that's or to Nest rather. Sorry, health tech to. You could do Nest there, or you can do ATF. And so I was kind of looking at that, but I like the idea of Watt there. I mean, I missed him as like a nice supplement to see on offense, but that was what I ended up doing. What I didn't feel comfortable with was like a B level Spectre side like squad. Like I didn't feel like I felt like if I set Ahsoka and like just Hu Yang and I don't know, Chopper or something else like that, I didn't feel like it was going to do any good. I felt like that could be almost cheesed down with a one shot that wouldn't take enough off my opponent's armory.
Okay, I appreciate that breakdown. How about you guys? If any of you had experience running that General Syndulla team, how might you have been setting up your, Rey and Ahsoka's differently?
Yeah, I stopped that. Like I started it as
Yeah.
a round one, but it's like here's when I hear about the Cal on the team. The minute you put Cal in any form of variation of it, it was just I can do old school EP Star Killer, and I know that's what happened
You
to me as
can't.
well.
Not
I
with
did.
the 65% with the 65% dispel level 6. Like that's what I was seeing everywhere.
I,
And it's at like 30% success rate. So it can be done, but there's a
Right.
two-thirds of those fail.
No, everybody for me, so it's like to be fair, everybody to me was doing crit avoidance. So I guess I had one and I was putting it, but like then you're just gonna Star Killer it, and the Seer Star Killer setup with it, and then anything that wasn't Ezra, because that was mine. I faced that. It's like if anything that wasn't Ezra, so that was the Nest. If we're doing that, the 65%, it was Seer Star Killer, and it still did just fine. It didn't hold. The only thing that caught me this whole season was the minute week 3 came up, everybody had Ezra back on it. It was 100%. That's what I faced, and it was. How are you setting up? So to your point, the Ahsoka had to be ATF because I got cheesed. Even with Ezra on the team, I got cheesed. So ATF had to be on my Ahsoka to try to prevent the cheese, even if you were going to hit me with the Balin or something else. But without the Ezra, every other form just toppled. Ezra was just still the monster that he was born to be.
All right. Well, guys, let's move to the next topic here. Set 20 datacrons that you're focused on getting in this second run of Conquest. We are currently in the second and last run for set 20. So anything that you were missing from the first run that you're hurting for? Personally, I did not get a Bamcron yet. I am looking for that. And then I would like to get a couple more Dark Side that have buffs up level 3. Because the turn meter level 3 I actually have quite a few of, but this last season of 3 vs 3, I found myself wishing I had more of the buffs up than the reactive, 15% turn meter. What say you?
I felt the exact opposite. I had like 3 or 4 of the buffs on basic, and I found a lot of my fights going like 2.5 to 4 minutes, where I feel like the stacking offense would have absolutely broken much harder in favor of that.
Okay, stacking. You're saying stacking offense versus buffs up. Okay, I can accept that, but you weren't opting for a turn meter. You were saying.
Oh no! I was saying like the one I found that I had the least of was the turn meter level 3, or not the offense stacking level 3 on buffs.
Okay.
If you have 2 or more undispellable, if you have 2 or more dispellable buffs, you gain 5% offense.
Yeah, you get a lot of turns in threes. So
Yes.
I can, and like you're saying with those long matches, Dagger. I'll tell you for myself, it was. I definitely want to kind of diversify my level threes because I had a high concentration of the dark side potency ones. You get 30% for any opponent that has less than 4 debuffs. And so I had a bunch of those, and in certain cases they're nice, but most it was like, meh, I really wish I had more offensive buffs.
Yeah.
But the one that I care the most about, and I know we've talked about this in separate shows, but like uh, getting a tenacity on Hut Cartel Long Six. I don't have that. I wish I had
Yeah.
it in threes as an option. I know I'm going to want it in fives, and that's my number one target for this conquest is to have that because I like the Smuggler Six. I ended up setting that. I have one that has really high tenacity, but I don't have the Hut Cartel Six, and I particularly like against Night Sisters that Hut Cartel. As long as you can land some debts out there, then the Marin protection regeneration is stopped in its tracks, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. I think what I'm really saying is I felt like I lacked that diversity of Dark Side level 3 specifically. And I think you kind of I think you summed it up a
Right.
little bit better than I did. It's mostly that I only had one potency level 3, and there was a couple times where I'm like, man, it would be nice to have another one of these. I had mostly TM up and a handful of buffs on basic. And the buffs on basics are good. I feel like those are much better in shorter. Well, we've talked about this before. They're better in the shorter fights, so they're generally benefited more in 5v5, or with teams where
Yeah.
you're using lots of basics. Now, a lot of teams,
There's
especially 3v3, you're not really spamming basics all that much. But
Sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of
there
those
was
where.
one other thing.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. There we go.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just saying, the one thing I noticed is that I set so many light side teams on defense is that I didn't really feel like I needed or wanted light side crons. Now, I'm not saying that that's good or
Huh.
bad. I'm just saying in general. I don't know if you guys felt that same way, but I definitely didn't feel like I was using many light side teams on offense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
they
felt
had
more stress for
thickness.
dark side crons than light side.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
counter
one.
it. And the only reason I'm gonna keep saying that is I was looking at it too. And I'm gonna go back to it. What we have and we don't again, I'm gonna keep going back to this mercenary long text has a lot more legs than everybody's paying attention to. So I'm just gonna keep going back to this piece. And if you look at it, there's a lot of characters who may be the only one attacking person, but like if you're putting the mercs together, there is still merit to what it gets to do. And having 2 and 3 attacks from a character, as we loved the attacker cron, and doing out of turn attacks has things there. So what I didn't think about, but didn't really appreciate, but I'm like really leaning into it now is seeing it when I got hit by it, and then also certain things I have to do with it. It's got things there for us to use, and getting an additional attack can be the difference of a win or a loss a lot of times.
Fair, fair. Dagger, I think there was a couple set 20 crons that you wanted to highlight in particular that you're interested in for next go round.
Yeah, we kind of touched on the Kyle one a little bit, and that's just not. And I had the level 9, I just didn't put any effort into level 3 or 6 or stats, so I never really got to use it. I also just set Krex with my saw like a good boy. Not,
Me too.
not that Kyle wasn't a good option, but I went with the traditional, set Krex because it's the best impediment you can set kind of deal. I also didn't get the Bamcron until after week 3 lock because I needed the TW. What do you call them? Reroll materials.
I got you.
Yeah. There's also a couple others that I. Hold on one sec. I'm exiting a conquest fight. I can go check my notes. and in game because the other one that I really wanted to try was HK. I want to find a use for HK. I don't know where or for what, but I had an HK level 9, and it never made its way on the defense because I set stronger defenses. I didn't really cheese. Like I saved GLs but set better teams on, you know what I mean? So I never really set like a sortie team or a GG team, which is where I think you would want to put him. But I think he has some applications as a banner burner or a banner breaker in threes. And I would like to look into that a little bit more, especially with like a sortie putting him in stealth. And then he does like the AoE fear. And just to break some banners, not for any other real reason.
This season. It's not a bad theory, Kraft. It was interesting to fight. It didn't stop me up, but yeah, it was good.
Also, another one I wanted to do was IPD.
Why is that?
Yeah, what's the use there?
Well, every single character that takes a bonus turn after an opponent takes a turn has been historically good. Same thing, like I said, with Cad Bane. Whenever somebody assists everyone on the team dealing more damage, it's always been like a meta-ish Kron, just like bonus turns. Now, my personal thought was putting it alongside Lord Vader, because Lord Vader will convert its prot to health. So it'll start off with its buff dispel, and then it'll explode.
Okay.
So, in 3v3 specifically, putting it with Lord Vader, because BKM's be like, all right, I'm going to beat you up, and then it's like, I'm going to explode. And I'm not saying the explosion will do a ton of damage, but it will make the fight go a lot faster. It'll proc Maul's pushes. It'll just maybe break a banner or two. And again, it's less about hard stopping things and more about just how can I steal banners from people? Because I learned, and I was in the bottom of Kyber 1. I wasn't even at the top. And with my account, people were averaging like 55 banners in attack. You know what I mean? It's not like people were being caught out by my like R9 teams. You know, having a max account doesn't mean nearly as much when it's like, oh, cool, I'm 16.1, but all my opponents are 14.5. So
absolutely, yeah, it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is it's trying to manufacture bleed, and I think some of these crons could manufacture bleed if they were implemented or modded in a certain way, which is something I want to look into, like HK putting just like a plus 170 set on HK to take advantage of the bonus speed he's gaining.
Yeah,
to see if you can get him out in front of some people.
Yeah, that I remember dropping once to it because I took Bad Batch in. Or not, it was Bad Batch, and I just didn't take a 25% light side turn meter. I'm sure that would have made the difference, but I underestimated the amount of speed that HK was going to gain. I thought that Echo would have been easily out ahead, and that was not the case. So, fair.
Yeah, it's mostly just I feel like there are tools at our disposal that were not explored enough. And I say enough, not that they weren't explored at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what I was thinking on that. And I was telling TJ beforehand, not having the Bamcron didn't hurt because it just meant I set Bam Sana. But it would be nice to have it as an option, and not that I need more options, I guess, but being short an option does make you feel short an option, I guess.
Fair. All right. That's about it for meta analysis, guys. Best attack in defense of the week. So, as far as it goes for me, I think highlighting two losses is important. First, we already talked about. Not a loss. The BKM versus Saw. But that was a near loss, and that was terrifying, and I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was, and I just barely got out. So, got to think about how they're modded if I want to be able to do that again, and I'm going to be sweating on that until we come back to 3 versus 3. The other thing is I kind of botched a Leviathan mirror. Now, I want to say week 1 or week 2, I saw Arsenal go against my Leviathan mirror, and his first reinforcement was Scimitar, and things looked so smooth, It just looked really, really nice. And I thought, wow, this might be better than the thing with calling Palpatine out first. And it did not go like that for me at all. I ended up needing to 4-shot that Leviathan. And I did get it down, but damn, it was no, wait. It wasn't a Leviathan mirror. It was Leviathan versus Executor, and that's what went south. Yeah, it was a bad time. I wouldn't recommend the experience. So, how about you, Dagger? Favorite attack and defense of the week? What you got?
To be honest, I don't really have a favorite attack because I was relatively clean on ground all week. Now everything came down to Fleet for me. Like, I fucking hate Fleet. Not that that's like a new thing, but lost my last round exclusively because got dodged a bunch Yeah, fun. It's always fun when you take your endurance versus executor and you have the potency to ability for the AoE ability block, and then all three of them fucking dodge.
Beautiful. Love it.
Oh my god, just absolute AIDS. Like I'll watch my language a little bit. Yeah, very frustrated with Fleet this week. I lost some fight. And there's no history up right now, but you can go and look. I sucked on Fleet this week, and I would like to point out that I am in a really good TW guild, and I know Tass does this occasionally too. I pulled up the write-ups for some of these fights, and I lost using the write-ups that we use in TW.
Yeah, if I don't have a strong memory on it, for sure, I've done that.
I'm very, very scathingly annoyed that I dropped the Fleet fights that I did. Because after I dropped that endurance fight, I went back in with the Empire fight we've used and got hoed out there too. And then I couldn't clear Fleet.
Fair.
So
fair.
Yeah, just absolutely, and that's the best. And as far as defenses go, yeah, I didn't really have the only real defenses I had was the we talked. I know TJ and I talked about this. It was the skewer of having SOK and Jabba in the back with Hux, and you have one JMK. Have fun. And I had 100 and something % tenacity on my Hut Cartel Cron. So it didn't forbid Night Sisters, but boy howdy, it made it harder.
Okay, fair.
And basically that's how I won all of my matches was put two things in the back, you have to JMK, you have one JMK, you have to try to off-counter the other one, and I just manufactured drops.
All right. Reasonable play. TJ, how about you? Favorite attack, favorite defense?
I'll go. Fuck defense. There was nothing there. I had a fun one that I got from Aesop, and Sasha's bro from another mother will tell you. You know, he said some crazy stuff. It held for him, so of course I'm thinking like I'm equal to Aesop, which is not true. Datacron or Relics or modding decided to do it as well. It was a fun concept of the idea, but it was putting Sana on the SLKR team, and he showed his history of what it did because there's just nothing out there for it, right? Like, man, that sounds like a fun idea. So that was fun in theory. I know it worked for him, and I couldn't give it to the team because I was like, I'm gonna face Sasha, and so anybody who knows Danos has that tournament, so I had to keep it hush us to keep it to the thing, but it didn't stop it. I'm sure they got banged or whatever, but still cool. Idea was still fun in concept and in theory, and I'm sure it works for Aesop, but as I'm not Aesop, I'll go back to the normal. The other one that I caught was actually end of round 3, which was cool. I found an actual team that could 57 mothers. And so if you go look at the history, it was a age-old test of what can do it, because obviously Darth Revan can do it, and then you'll take your 54. But I was trying to play the efficiency game, and what did it for me was Balin. Balin in front of it, and you don't need any special setup. There was just a Terminator thing that was on it. I regained everything for 57 because eventually everything went away for those turns, and that was cool for me because all season it's either take your 54 and take your lumps. You're going to, even with LV or anything out there, nothing was getting at 57. So seeing that and playing it, man, was that clean. You just eat them up, they go away, go 9 nights, and then you just win.
Yeah, quick honorable mention to Balin on offense. I know we talked about that in the week 2 episode. That, you know, with that JML counter proving to be pretty reliable.
Yes, it was
against Balin's of any stripe.
Shout out to Balin. Shout out to Balin and Redacted for being two of the very best teams this month on attack in 3v3.
Yeah, they Redacted this guy. Dude, I watched.
I'm not. If you read Tass's Discord, you know I'm not going to publicly say it.
I know, but to honorable mention to Tass.
Yeah.
Tass's video, dude, was my instruction aid as I was playing my fight, and I'm like, all right, let me go. So I had him on YouTube. So this is honorable mention to Tass. As he's talking through it, and it's like, yeah, this is the reason why I do it here. So I literally would fast forward. Okay, let me play the fight. So honorable mention the Task calling out Shock, and I'm like, that means I get to use Jedical here. I literally did it 2 out of the 3 fights, Task, because of your comment on it, and I use your video as my instruction aid as I'm watching. Oh, that's what you do here. So I'm just going
happy to pass on the good work. Shout out to Gavon's stunt double and duck stab for shouting that my way. So one good turn deserves another.
Another really quick reminder to everyone, because I forgot this month until I remembered. After after you use your JML, you still have Jedi on your roster.
This
good
is
ones.
the thing.
Good ones.
this
JKR, JKL Hoda still exists.
That's why I say
Owl, whatever. You know what I mean? Like these things, whoever you use with JML, you still have a team left over.
This is why I'm giving the props to Tass. Because the normal setup right now you do is like, I'm just going to take JKC on the JML team. Tass giving you the shock option to kill your Balin gave me my 57 on a dash team because Cal with JKR exists. It's like, so it's like the setup of what we were doing is like without seeing the knowledge, it would have been, no, I'm just going to go here. No, I split for another full 57 because of Tass and doing the call out. So watching the stream, just calling out the reason why, and him giving a very thorough video explanation of here is step one. This is not how I'm going to do it. It's like watching it and seeing it. I fucking paused it with YouTube. Let me just play the fight. Okay, now here's the next step. It's like a how-to video.
I even got some decent use out of JKR GMY.
I did a JKR Grandmaster Jolie for 57 on somebody's... What was it? Hold on.
Tuscans?
Was it? No, it wasn't Tuscans. Hold on.
It does work versus Tuscans. Anyway,
yes,
the point I'm making is I sometimes forget after because I'll use JML. Sometimes it'll be with like Cal plus Bass, or sometimes you'll use your JML and you're like, okay, cool. Because in fives, after you use your JML team, your Jedi are now basically exhausted.
It was right? It was against a Kel Cam JK for the record, so maybe not super impressive, but whatever.
The point I'm trying to make is in fives, after you use JML, you pretty much exhausted your use of Jedi. So that's something I need to take notes at the end of every 3v3 session now. Like I literally have a notepad open where it's things I remembered week 3. That's literally the name of it. Things I remembered week 3, 3v3. And it's you have extra Jedi is one of them on there. It's like JKR exists. That's what it says. Mm-hmm. Remember JKR exists. You're fighting, man, it's a goddamn shame you have all that evasion. What if I put an unresistible buff immunity on you? And mark you. Right? Like, fair. What? And then, anyways, it's... Mm-hmm. I just, that's why I said I was looking at my notes, and that's the one thing I forgot to mention was, because that's not in my notes. That's a different notepad.
All right. Well, Sasha, last but not least, sure. Your favorite attack and defense of the week.
So for attack, I had some interesting ones, but one that was my favorite and that like I enjoyed it and was excited for it was one that ended up not working and costing me the match. And I kind of knew that there was a shot it would be a relatively high efficiency match and taking risks might not make sense, but I really wanted to try this. And it was against Crew, Dark Ray, and FOTP. And I had set my Star Killer on defense. I'd set, it might have been like Savage, Star Killer, and an ATF, I think, on D. And so I wanted to do something cheap if I could. This was bottom front on the opponent's defense. And I had gotten it to work once. But backed out because I was just testing. And this was EP, MJ, and Darth Vader with a turn meter level, dark side turn meter level 3. So, characters I wasn't otherwise using. And the failure point on it, I mean, I had a couple issues. Like one, it was just not really tuned correctly because I had my TW mods on MJ. So I pulled off my GAC speed MJ, so that slowed her down, which was not helpful. But the point being, like, it actually can work. You're just taking a meaningful amount of risk. You've got to be able to stun or ability block Dark Ray, but you can't target Dark Ray. So a Vader basic ability block, even on Merciless Massacre, isn't an option. So you really need to be able to stun her, otherwise she gets that unresistible, undispellable shock out. But if it works, then you have this super cheap, smooth path through that. Did not work. So anyway, that was the one that I was excited for, but I ended up not getting the stun, so it ended up not working. Then the defenses that I liked actually, one, I don't know what it stopped, but I set Atreya, Darth Nihilus, and LV as the third instead of Savage. As I mentioned, Savage was with ATF and SK on that.
Yeah.
But Treya, Nihilus, LV got a hold, and so did well for me. It was just kind of a fun mixture. Um, then the other defense that I enjoyed, and I was kind of curious to try it, was we have that Lando cron. I know not a lot of people use it. It's old school Lando, and it ramps his offense, his defense penetration, everything like crazy as he crits. And I set it a Saw, Luthen, and Lando, and I set against Rockstar, so he came at it with an all R9 Inquisitors team, which does generally very well against Saw squads. And he mentioned that by the second time, like he couldn't kill one of them off. By the second time Lando went, it just wiped the sides. So that 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 was one that was fun. And I've used it on offense before to take out a QA squad, and like Lando ramps, just to give some context, like Lando in my battle, I used it on offense against the QA squad. As long as Lando survives and gets to go again, I think it was like his second or third time, his AoE was hitting for over 400k on each target. So there's just a ton of damage that rains down from it. He's slow. He's not thick. He's just such an old character, but it ramps it nicely. So when it works, it's fun. So those were my favorites.
Okay. I appreciate that. All right, guys. It's usually pretty typical for us to be brief in week 3, and I guess this is not, a terrible outlier. So it's time to wrap things up. Takeaways and final thoughts. Going, walking out of this season, thinking about what you're looking forward to most when we come back to 3 versus 3. What say you, Dagger?
Week one reminded me of what GAC could be. And I think that kind of paints me into a corner for weeks 2 and 3 once we have data. And now that everyone knows what to look for and how to decipher data, that the meta gets solved almost instantly. And I think I need to find a way to keep GAC new and fresh and interesting for me, whether that be flipping the way I play to either, some type of exhaust defense like Fatal does, or some save every team I enjoy playing ever for offense like Zid does. I think I need to. One of the big things I figured out this week, because I would get frustrated, is I know I've said this before. I need to find ways for me to enjoy GAC. Because week 1 was amazing, and that set an unrealistic bar for the next 2 weeks, to where I think a lot of people feel similar to that, where the Wild West of week 1 is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, and not to beat that dead horse too much, I think a lot of people end up being like slaves to the meta. Like I remember weeks 2 and 3. I think I fought 11 of the same teams every round. Right, it was just like 4 teams that changed. So I think if I had had different teams to take against those teams as opposed to prescribed counters, it would feel less like going through the motions and more like I had some autonomy. And I think that's the part that frustrates me the most about GAC, especially 5s, is that I feel like the autonomy is removed from my decisions to a degree if I'm trying to win. So I think either finding a way to reconcile that, or, because it's a video game, it's supposed to be fun, and I've enjoyed this Conquest for the last day more than I enjoyed the last 2 weeks of 3v3. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get to use the teams I want to use, how I want to use them. And I need to take that attitude into other game modes. Anyways, I digress. I'll give up my soapbox.
No, fair enough. Well, TJ, how about you? When we come back to 3 versus 3, what's top of mind for you?
Dagger squared. No, I think I think Dagger put it really well. Is that I walked in with high hopes. We talked about in the in-between of 5s going into 3s. I was excited because I liked 3s, and like Fatal said it too. It's like because you have more teams to set, so you get to do more things. This started great, and then to me went downhill quickly because it got so solved so fast. So you weren't doing a lot of the things, right? It was like, if I lost a fight, it was something I knew because it was bad luck or something else. It wasn't something where I actually gained knowledge. So that became more frustrating because it's like, I knew I could have done this, but I wanted to try to change it up, and I was punished for it. So I think Dagger puts it really well. I'm going to go in with the hope that what we see in week 1, we get to keep some part of it in week 3. And then it brings back the vibrance, because I really do like the 3s aspect, not because of the time sink, because it really is a time sink, but because you get to play with all these theory crafts, and that feels like a great part of the game for me, and what I'm going to try to take into it next time.
Okay, appreciate that. Sasha, same to you. When we come back to 3 versus 3, what are you looking forward to? What are you going to be cautious of? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, similar sentiment. I got to amen with what Dagger said, and like TJ, I think it kind of captures, I think, a lot of how I was feeling, and I think for myself, I mentioned it in the last time when I was talking about favorite attack. The favorite attack I had was one that didn't work, one that I knew was not optimal as a risk management approach for trying to win the match, but I was curious to try it. I thought it would be cool to do. I find I need to put my thumb on that balance of play for joy rather than competitive optimization with GAC a bunch these days. It's a little more frustrating because of the rarity of GAC matches because of the erodium bug right now. But when I look at next 3v3, I want to try and continue to get creative. I really enjoy it if I can come up with something on defense, like maybe just at least per match one squad that I haven't seen a lot of data on, and then something that I want to try, and that sort of creates sustainable enthusiasm for myself. So I like that. And then the other thing I want to try and do, and I look at this for 5s, and I've mentioned this in the past, one character that I just find fun is Young Han. And like I said, I used old Lando in a squad last time. I want to see if I can get Young Han to ramp on something here. That that'll be that'll be on my moral victory list for the coming weeks.
Fair enough. I know you love that character, so I want to believe for you.
Thank you.
No worries. For my part, so yeah, the reason why, Dagger said that he was seeing the same 11-ish out of 15 teams on defense for everybody. And that's because of the solve that kind of came early to mid of the season, which was, well, it's not that I couldn't rotate another 2, 3, 4 teams around and have something a bit more different, but the fact is that if I do that, they're going to be cleaner on me than I will be on them. And that's what the data bore out. So that said, I think we could maybe all, if you're experiencing that, and, like I was, maybe we can all take more of a page out of Sasha and Aesop's book, which is be willing to risk making a few concentrate teams in 3 versus 3, which is always risky, classically, because, if you start dropping something and you've concentrated teams on defense, you started the fight on the back foot for offensive counters. You needed whatever you lined up to work the first time, and the second you start dropping, things can start to get away from you. However, if you're really looking to disrupt what looks safe come next time, it might have to be that way. The one upside is, of course, we will have that first run of conquest. You'll have 1 week worth of Datacron farming for the as yet unannounced Datacron Set 21. So there's going to be a whole bunch of new stuff thrown in the mix. But if you, again, were finding yourself feeling stale for what you could set down or feeling bored with what you had to keep fighting, be the change that you want to see in the world. Set these crazy concentrated teams and, have a little fun with it. Fatal isn't with us here tonight, but we will say, on his behalf, as the only other content creator on the show, you can catch him this season at twitch.tv/PlaybookTV. And for all the other guys here on the stream, thank you guys for showing up. It's been a busy couple days of recording, but we got it done, and now I'm gonna, start wrapping up here. So
I would just like to add one more thing before you go.
Oh, sure.
I think a lot of us here have a lot of the same sentiments when it comes to how we feel, and I know I have made a more concentrated effort to not let the negativity come into the show. That being said, this 3v3 season, despite all the frustrations I had, was probably one of the most enjoyable GAX seasons overall, as far as, gameplay. The Datacrons. We talk a lot about how we feel, and we don't discuss a lot about how the Datacron sets felt. And I think this 3v3 season, as far as the Datacrons went, was incredibly smooth and rewarding gameplay-wise. I feel like there was enough nuance and enough brute force to where you could set a reasonable defense, but there was also ways to navigate through. And that isn't always the case when you have bespoke crons like Great Mothers, where if you fail, you lose, right? Remember when Gungans first came out with their Jar Jar Binks cron? And I do want to just give a shout out to CG that this meta that we're currently in for 3v3 was really good. So all the negativity aside, there was a lot of really good stuff in this 3v3 season, despite our more negative feelings.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate that. Anything else from the rest of you before I start, wrapping up as usual? All right. Good stuff.
All good for me.
Okay. So yeah, if you're looking forward to catching me live next season for 5 vs 5, then you know that you can catch me at twitch.tv/Tassinix. I do simulcast now on YouTube as well. My channel is Tassinix Gaming. If you check out my YouTube, there's a whole bunch of other Swugger-related content there that I think you'd be interested in. We've got my Datacron set guide video on Set 20 that I made with Aesop Rock, the #1 player in the world. My mod guide videos on characters and factions. You've asked about some tutorial vids like, GAC Omicron tier list and how to mod. And of course, it is a rebroadcasting point for this very podcast, Plotting and Scheming. However, it does live natively over on Spotify. No matter where you find an episode of the show, though, there is going to be an RSS feed link in the description. So if you don't see us on your preferred podcast program, take that link, plug us in. You'll be able to follow us that way. Aside from that, I feel like I'm always forgetting something, but yeah, if you've enjoyed the show, anything that you watch on my YouTube, first of all, if you enjoyed it, please give it a like, hit subscribe on the channel if you want to see more, and of course, if you want to go above and beyond the Call of Duty and you want to really support the channel, there are a few ways to do that. First of all, I have a Cash App, $Tassinix is the way to go there. My PayPal is tassinix@gmail.com, and, if you want to get advanced scouting tools, you want to get early access to some of my content, including Plotting and Scheming, you want to have the ability to come and hang out with me in the GAC, Mad Men that are always scheming in the background, you got to check out my Patreon. Patreon.com/Tassinix. For any upwardly mobile Grand Arena player, there is something there of interest to you. $5 a month gets you into the Tass House at VIP access level, where you get early access to Plotting and Scheming, which is generally coming out on Friday mornings at 8 a.m., but patrons are getting it as early as Tuesday night within hours of recording, so you can have that edge going into the first round of the week. In addition, you get early access to my Datacron set guide videos, and of course, that aforementioned text and voice chat on Discord, where you can just pop on in, say hi. Thank you so much to Andrew, Banja, Deadpool Cow 28, JJ's Productions Twitch, Jobin4527, Johnny B. Ottawa, Miasmal, Mus Ross, Rays Malbus, Sam Vimes, Sheepdog 47, Squed, Stark Strategy Gamer, Sweens 14, and White Wolf. Moving on up to the $10 a month tier is VIP Access Plus, where you get a bundled Patreon access to me and to OmegaBot. So if you watch my stream at the start of each one, I always have an OmegaBot report on my opponent, because nothing shows you your opponent's offensive and defensive tendencies in such a digestible, easily understood way. Anybody can use it for free to pull a report on their opponent's last week of history, but patrons can make a custom report with any number of weeks. You get a downloadable HTML version of it with links that you can click that go right back into swugga.gg or Insight, whichever one you use. So just helps you further minimize the time that you spend scouting while still keeping that accuracy up. Thank you so much to Dobby, Esh Sotnikam, Snack Attack, and Striker. And moving on up to the $15 a month tier, VIP Access Premium, some have said the greatest value Swugga bundle in the game, because you get a bundled Patreon access to me, to OmegaBot, and to Hot Utils, the #1 tool for your mass mod management and loadout creation. A couple clicks can move you between your Grand Arena, TB, TW, and Raid mods. You can use it to comprehensively remod your account like Fatal and TJ do on an almost weekly basis. You can slice through months' worth of accrued mods in seconds, to say nothing of all of the enhanced TW functionality. Thank you so much to Argots, Arj, Duckstab, Dark Hug, Frick Frack Paddywhack, General Milan, Sir Boss, Ivanek, Kev, Quig, Saldag, Sophus, The Lost Womp Rat, Wilco, and Zoltre. And at the top of the heap, Ingestors Club Elite, the one, the only Nomad's Reaper. This guy pops in a stream from time to time, drops hundreds of subs, thousands of biddies, incredibly generous support over the years. Thank you so much, my man. And, of course, last but never least, our special thanks first to Yoda Force, one of my original supporters from way back in the day, bought me the mic I'm speaking to you on right now, and even though he has long since quit the game, we wish him well from the other side. To Mrs. T, my wife, thank you for all you do in the background, keeping our daughter in check while she would otherwise destroy our home, while Dad is busy trying to be, halfway decent at a phone game. And of course, last but never least, to my co-hosts here on Plotting and Scheming, Dagger, TJ, Sasha Aisha, and Fatal. Gentlemen, as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to record our show together. We're nearly 2 years in, and here we are, still making time every week to break down our favorite mode in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I learn something from you guys every week. Hopefully you pick up something from me from time to time, but it's not really about that. It's about the community. It's about the engagement, the discussion around Grand Arena. Us finding out about new counters, new pitfalls, all that good discussion around the show. And I have you guys to thank for making that possible. So, appreciate it. All right, coming back over to the main scene. We're coming to the end of 3 vs. 3. We turn our eyes to 5 vs. 5. We'll see you next week for the 5 vs. 5 preview episode. Just, a spoiler ahead. We don't have a guest this time, but it is going to be a great discussion. I have high confidence in that. Until next time, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. Take care.